Well, for more on the nuclear deal and the impact of Iran's sanctions, I'm joined by Nader Habibi. He's the professor of economics of the Middle East at Brandeis University and joins us from Boston. Welcome, Professor. Good to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Professor Habibi, Iran wants full relief from the sanctions. Rouhani has clearly stated that they want total removal, not a suspension. The U.S. and the allies want to phase in relief over time. Iranian officials said there will be no deal without the full dismantlement of sanctions. So do we even have a deal over here? How is this going to play out now? Is this a major stumbling block?
I don't think it is a major stumbling block, but it would be a topic of intense negotiation in the next 3 months. Because if you look at the statement that was issued on April 2nd, and the agreement, it says that the sanctions would be lifted after the AIEA certifies that Iran is complying with its commitments. And I think although two parties have offered different interpretations of this, but eventually the issue can be resolved, in my opinion.
Well, should the sanctions be lifted gradually? Doesn't that make more sense to see that Iran is indeed complying with the accord?
Yes, and the sanctions would be subject to verification of Iran's compliance by IAEA. But even the Americans have stated that within a period of 6 months to 1 year, that can be accomplished, the compliance that Iran is needed to demonstrate.
Professor Habibi, from Iran's perspective, what are the most crucial sanctions to be removed?
Right. The most important sanctions for Iran are the financial sanctions and the sanctions on its oil sector. The financial sanctions have practically made it impossible for Iran to engage in any substantial international trade because the transaction of funds among Iranian banks and international banks are now suspended because Iran is no longer able to benefit from the SWIFT service. So that is really a very, very invasive kind of sanction that has set back Iran's international trade significantly. Iran has money accumulated in many countries as a result of its sales of oil, but it cannot transfer those funds back to the central bank of Iran. The oil sanctions are also important because Iran has reduced its sales of oil to about 1 million barrels, whereas before it was selling 2 million barrels of oil in international markets.
Well, these have obviously had a crippling effect on Iran's economy, but just 12 months ago, there was some sanction relief just to get Iran back to the table. Already concessions were made just for the resumption of negotiations, and that relief has had a positive impact on the economy. How much has that already helped just to get Iran to the table and that relief?
Yes, that has been significant. Prior to the relief that was granted to Iran, the economy suffered a setback. The economic growth in 2012, 2013 was negative, but after that relief was offered, and also because of the economic policies that were pursued by Rouhani administration, economy has been growing slowly, about 2 to 3% in the past 12 months. It is not ideal, but it is better than what Iran experienced the year before that.
So the economy has already gained a little bit of traction. Now, what about the concern that if Iran will have these sanctions lifted pretty much up front, or at least the significant ones, that they will have money and that money could be used to pump up its military and to finance terror? And at the point where inspectors are allowed to go in and check things out, too much damage would have already been done. What do you say to that?
Well, the agreement focuses on Iran's nuclear activity. So nothing is said about how Iran is going to use the additional funds that it would acquire moving forward. Therefore, what matters is whether Iran complies with the requirements regarding its nuclear program. And I think the requirements for inspection and the agreement of Iran to spontaneous inspections by the International Atomic Energy Agency would be enough to guarantee that Iran will not violate these sanctions, these requirements. Furthermore, the agreement says that if there is any violation, the sanctions can be reinstated. Therefore, that option is available to international community under the agreement.
All right, well, the reinstatement of sanctions would require a number of parties to agree to that. Unfortunately, we can't delve into that one. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much, Nader Habibi, Professor of Economics of the Middle East at Brandeis University.